This week I'm going to be sorting out my outside table. The table has gone through all sorts of incarnations. This is it when I had newly retiled the tabletop. Prior to that it had a wooden slatted top. I'm going to be using the existing legs but replacing the tabletop itself. The legs have gone a bit rotten at the bottom, so I'm going to fix this. I'm going to use this bit of wood to replace the bottom section of the leg. I'm going to cut off the rotten part and then measure it up and then screw the new bit of wood onto the old legs. I've cut it to size and then I'll glue and screw this on. First of all, I need to let the legs dry out as they're really damp from all the rain that we've had recently. While they're drying out, I'm going to be sorting out the tabletop. I'm going to use these old decking boards for the tabletop. I'm going to cut these to size. I'm going to cut 7 of these at 160 centimetres long. I'm going to make sure the width of the tabletop is 92 centimetres wide altogether. They're all cut now. Next I'm going to measure out and mark where I'm going to cut slots for the biscuits to go in. I'm going to mark 5 centimetres from the outside, then 30 centimetres in, and then 60 centimetres in. And then 5 centimetres on this side, 30 centimetres, and then 60 centimetres. And the centre is 77 centimetres. I'm going to give the edges a nice clean up, so I'm going to just sand these down a bit, make them nice and smooth and clean and get any dirt and grime off. Now I'm going to use my biscuit cutter to cut the slots. I'm making sure that the height is set exactly so the slot is going to be dead centre. I'm going to use this scrap bit of wood just to test it out. Yep, that's the right height and that's dead centre in the piece of wood. I'm going to cut the slots in all these planks where I've marked them up. Great, that's the first slot done. Only 83 more to go. To know where I'm going to cut, all you do is match this red mark up on my biscuit cutter to the mark that I've made on the wood. Then I'm going to brush any excess sawdust out of the slot and make sure this is really clean. I've cut all the slots now for the biscuits to go in. And now it's time to glue it all together. I'm putting the biscuits in the joint just to check this fits. And then now I'm going to glue it all together. I'm going to make sure the glue's all over the biscuit too. And then I'm going to slot it together. I'm just tapping this in place with a mallet. Now I'm going to do the same on all the other pieces of wood. I'm going to make sure the glue is over both sections of the wood and all over the biscuits. Because what happens is the biscuits will expand and that will help to secure the joint really firmly.
Okay, it's a bit of a mess. I've put it in here and got it as flat as I possibly can with weight on it. I've got a flat edge underneath there, so hold it nice and flat, and then clamped it up the far end. And then I am making sure it is level and flat and there's no gaps. And then just letting it dry.
I'm going to put this back outside again. It's all dry and there's a few little gaps here and there. And the top edge here is not quite flat, so I'm going to sand this down just to get it nice and flat and level. I'm going to mark a straight line across so I know which part I need to sand down. I'm using a really coarse sandpaper on my belt sander just to rip this down very quickly. Great, that looks straight now. All I've done is put my flat edge up against it just to check there's no gaps. Now it's time to do the edging for the tabletop. I'm going to be using 3x2 inch treated timber. I've tilted my miter saw to a 45-degree angle just to cut these.
Make me feel so good. I feel so good. Make me feel so good. I feel so.
That's the long sections done now. Now I'm going to cut the slots on the edges of the table for the biscuit joints to go in exactly the same way that I did earlier. Great, that fits all together.
Okay, I bought this inside here. I've turned it upside down. I've put the edges on and just sort of matched them up, make sure that they're all right. And I'll now put the ends on and cut the last one in. I'm going to use these just to stiffen it up. So what I'm going to do is cut this and then drill some holes, so it's going to then just make sure it's all straight. So let's see how that bit goes.
I'm cutting these metal sections off my angle grinder just at the right size so that they fit underneath the table.
A little tip I've found is to drill with a smaller drill bit first. It's much quicker, and then your normal size drill, because otherwise it takes ages trying to drill just with that one.
Now I'm going to cut the end sections for the edging. You can see my chop saw is really good as it's got a light on it that shows exactly where I'm going to be cutting, so you can get it really accurate. That's the end section done now. Now to cut the slots on both the tabletop and the edging for the biscuits to go in. I'm going to turn this up the other way so I can attach the metal strips, and this will just help to straighten the tabletop. I've cut the biscuit slots first before I've attached the metal strips, as the metal strips were getting in the way of my biscuit cutter. Now I can screw in the metal strips. I'm gluing up all the edges and I'm attaching this to the decking boards. I'm making sure the glue is all over this and all over the biscuits, exactly like I did earlier. And now I'm tapping this in place with my mallet, and now I'm strapping it all together to hold it in place firmly. I've clamped it and strapped it in place, so I'm going to make sure it's all in line to close up any gaps. I'm going to be gluing one end at a time, basically because I haven't got enough clamps. This end here is all dry now, so now it's time to glue the other end. I tried to clamp it here, but it didn't quite work because it was pulling it in all the wrong directions. So I'm just going to leave this because, as you can see, there's no gaps. However, this corner here is not very good, but I'll be able to sort this out once it's dry and plane it all so it's nice and flat. But at least the 45-degree angle is right, but it will need a lot of planing this way and that way. While that is drying, I'm going to sort out the table legs. The rotten wood here is now dried, and I'm going to treat it with some wet rot hardener. First of all, with my really small drill bit, I'm going to drill several holes at the bottom of the legs, and this will allow the wet rot wood hardener to soak into the wood fully. This is the wet rot hardener that I'll be using. It does what it says on the tin. I'm pouring this on, and then with my brush I'm just dabbing this all over. It's quite corrosive, so I'm making sure that I'm wearing rubber gloves. As you can see, it really soaks into the rotten wood, and then I'll let this dry out. The wet rot wood hardener is now dried. It only takes about 2 hours to dry, and it's now really rock hard. So what I can do is to fit that piece of wood that I've cut previously. I'm going to drill a couple of holes so that screws are going to be countersunk. Then I'm going to switch my drill bit to a smaller drill bit and then drill all the way through this bit of wood. Now I'm going to glue this and screw this into the bottom of the table legs. I'm using an additional screw here as it wasn't quite fixing properly together, but the glue will help. Now it's dry, I'm going to sand this down to make sure that it's all in line and it's all level. And then I'll fill it with wood filler. I'm sanding this down a bit, again with coarse sandpaper or my belt sander. I'm making sure that the legs are in line, and I'm sanding this down, and then I'm making sure that it's level with the other legs. To do this, I'm using my flat edge and a tape measure, and then making sure this is exactly at the same height each end. And then I'm also making sure that the legs are all level from the bottom to the top. Great, that's all level now and there's no gaps. The tabletop is now dried and it's now ready for sanding. I'm using coarse sandpaper again just to rip this down and get it all flat and level. I'm going across the grain just to rip this down a bit quicker. And then now I'm going with the grain to get it all smooth with no visible scratches going across the grain. The tabletop is looking pretty good now. and it's quite sort of rusticy looking.
Okay, I brought this all in here, brought the base in here, and then the top as well. And what I'm going to do is to fill the gaps just in that repair there. So I'm going to fill it with some wood filler. Okay, I'll let that dry overnight and then I'll give it a sand down tomorrow. And I'll also further sand this down a bit smoother tomorrow as well.
I'm using my disc sander just to sand this down even smoother, so there's no visible joint in the repair that I've done. I'm brushing all the dust off and then now I'm painting it with an undercoat. Well, actually it's a primer and an undercoat in one. It's now painted and you can't really tell which leg has had the repair. It's this one here. It's looking a little bit rough here, but then I'll sand it down a bit further and then I'll give it another coat of paint. Now I'm putting on the top coat of paint. I still had some paint left when I painted the legs previously several years ago. Great, that's all painted and you can't see the repair, which is good. I haven't painted the top section as you won't see this when the tabletop's on. I've got these rubber feet to put on the legs. This will just raise it up from the ground and stop the rain and moisture getting into the legs as it did previously. They look pretty ugly now, but you won't see these at all once the table's up the proper way.
Well, I'm loving this already. I don't know if I really want to sand it down much more because it's looking pretty good as it is. But what I do want to do, where the sawdust has gone in the gaps, it's then filled the gaps essentially. So what I want to do is to keep that permanently. So I'm going to glue into the gaps and then sprinkle some more sawdust into the gaps, and that will keep it in there and it will close up all the gaps. But I still like the ridge bits, so hopefully that will stay. Let's try it out, see what it's like. I'll let that dry overnight and then brush it all off and sand it all off tomorrow. We'll see what it looks like. Okay, it's looking pretty good so far. It's just the gaps here just need a little bit tidying up. Where I've filled them, they don't look really good. So what I'm going to do is to fill them some more. I'm going to mix up some sawdust and some wood glue and then fill the gaps. So let's see how that goes. I've chopped the top off my wood glue container and then all I'm going to do is to fill it with some sawdust and make a mixture of sawdust and wood glue. Whoa, look at that. Great, that's that done. It looks pretty good already. I'll just let it dry overnight and then I'll give it a sand down.
I'll give this another sand down and I'll get off any excess glue that's dried. You can see that there's still some glue showing here. Hopefully it won't be too difficult to come off and it won't clog up my sander too much. Great, that's looking really good now and the gaps are looking so much better. Even the corner joints are looking pretty good. Now just to sand this off with a smooth sandpaper, and make the edges nice and rounded. I'm now going to use my disc sander just to get it even smoother.
Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful morning. Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful day. Yeah, yeah, it's a beautiful morning. Yeah, yeah, it's
Great, that's all done now, and it's still looking a bit rusticy, which is what I wanted anyway. And the joins now are looking really good. I'm going to take this into my shed just one final time for sealing this.
Okay, I think this is ready now. It's still looking a bit rusticy in places, but I've given it a good sand down. It's taken a lot of sanding, and then I've sanded it down with my orbital sander just to get into some of the edges, just to clean them up and make them nice and smooth. And then now I'm just going to brush it over with a soft cloth just to get any other excess sawdust off. And then I'm going to use Danish oil, put some Danish oil on it and get it nice and shiny and sealed so that it can then be outside permanently. I've brought it in here just in case it rains while I'm sealing it. I don't want any spots on it, any raindrops onto it. So, and that will then dry overnight, and then I'll give it another coat tomorrow. So let's see how this goes. I'm just going to protect my hand just with a glove and then give the Danish oil a good shake, and then I'll pour it on just to get it really soaked in. Okay, I'll just let that dry. That's looking good already. I love the way that the wood here is a different colour. I like all the knots on this bit of wood, it's good. Even the knot here makes it look good. And then because it's treated timber, you've got these marks here.
Okay, it's now dry, and it's now time to attach the legs to the top.
You make me feel so good. I feel so good. You make me feel so good. I feel so
I don't need these metal braces anymore, as the table legs should hold it all in position and stop any bowing of the tabletop. I'm going to measure this exactly where the table legs need to go, and then screw this in exactly the right position, which will hold it all in place nice and firmly.
Great, that's that table sorted. It looks so much better than it did before. The legs are sorted as well, sorted out the rotten bits. You can just see where the joins are and where the old sort of rotten wood is. But overall, it looks so much better. So thanks for watching, and remember to subscribe for some more DIY videos.
I feel so good.